Unmasking as a neurodivergent isn't one moment, but a practice. It's not one big reveal. It's not a single choice or a brave social media post. It's not always visible. It doesn't always feel good. And it rarely happens all at once. For many of us, the idea of unmasking sounds dramatic, like there's this fixed real self hiding under a costume, and if we just pull it off, we'll finally be free. But the reality is, most of us don't even know where the mask ends and where we begin. Most of us have been masking since childhood, to stay safe, to be loved, to pass, to survive. So unmasking is a slow process. It requires patience as we recover the true self underneath the disguise. Hi, I'm Essie. I'm an autistic and ADHD therapist. And today we're going to talk about unmasking, not as a final destination, but as a practice, a reclamation, a process of noticing what doesn't feel like you anymore and making space for what does. We'll explore what unmasking really looks like in everyday life, how to do it at your own pace, and how to navigate the grief, confusion, and joy that can come with it. Because unmasking is as much about being more visible as it is about becoming more honest with yourself first. What do I mean by masking? Well, it's not about faking a personality. It's not about lying or pretending to be someone you're not. In fact, most masking is incredibly skilled. It's a form of social survival, learned and practiced over time. Masking is when you suppress or edit your natural self in order to be accepted, avoid conflict, or stay safe. Sometimes it's conscious, like rehearsing what to say before a phone call, but often it's automatic, something your body does for you before you even realize it. You might monitor your tone so you don't sound too blunt. Smile when you're actually overwhelmed. Sit on your hands to stop yourself stimming. Pretend to follow a conversation when you're totally lost. Avoid asking questions, even when you're confused. Dress to blend in, even if it feels wrong in your body. Laugh along with a joke you didn't understand or didn't like. These are micro adjustments, and they add up. They create a social self that feels distant from your internal experience. And eventually, you start to forget what it feels like to just be. This is why unmasking isn't always obvious. Sometimes it looks like leaving a group chat without apologizing, letting yourself stim in public, wearing headphones even when people look at you funny, saying, "I need time to think," instead of rushing an answer, crying when you're overwhelmed instead of powering through. And sometimes unmasking looks like noticing the urge to mask and choosing not to. That's where it begins, not with grand declarations, but with tiny moments of self-permission. Masking is often how we survived, and unmasking is how we start to live. So if masking is so exhausting, why is it so hard to stop? The answer is simple but painful. Because the mask kept you safe. Because it worked. Sort of. Because it had to. You may have masked to avoid bullying, to keep a job, to stay connected to your family, to make teachers like you, to pass as normal enough to be left alone, to not be called difficult or dramatic or rude or lazy or wrong. And in many cases, it wasn't a choice. It was an adaptation to a world that said, you can stay, but not like that. So of course it's hard to let go, even when it's burning you out, even when it's silencing your needs, even when you know deep down it isn't sustainable. Dropping the mask doesn't just change how you relate to others. It changes how others relate to you. Suddenly, you're not the easy one, not the chill one, not the selfless overachiever or the funny, neurotypical seeming friend. You become visible, honest, specific, and not everyone will like that. Unmasking means risking rejection, and for many neurodivergent folks, rejection is traumatic, especially if your early experiences taught you that being real meant being punished, mocked, or ignored. So the mask doesn't just protect your image, It protects your belonging. And that's why it's so hard to drop. Which means unmasking can't be forced. It has to be chosen. And that choice only becomes possible when safety is real, not just intellectual, but embodied. So if you've been frustrated with yourself, wishing you could just stop masking already, pause and offer yourself some compassion. It's not a sign that you're weak or that you're fake or that you're failing. You're still surviving, and that's worth honoring before you ever change a thing. Unmasking sounds kind of glamorous, like it's a single choice, a bold statement, a perfect transformation. But real unmasking is awkward, uncomfortable, and not always received well. Sometimes it looks like saying, "I don't get it," instead of pretending you do. Sometimes it looks like wearing what feels good, even if it makes you stand out. Sometimes it's choosing not to go to the thing and not lying about why. Sometimes unmasking looks like speaking in your natural cadence, even if people find it weird. Letting yourself stim, openly, joyfully, without shrinking. Using scripts because they help, not because you feel like you have to. It could involve admitting you're overwhelmed without apologizing, asking for clarity, accommodations, time, without guilt. And other times, unmasking means choosing to keep the mask on, but knowing why. Masking is still protective in many cases, and there are places where unmasking isn't safe yet. There are relationships where honesty has been punished, and unmasking isn't about total transparency. More so, it's about agency. It's about noticing I'm masking right now, and I need to choose whether I keep doing it. It's about asking, do I want to keep playing this role? Or do I want to let a little more of myself show here? There's no universal timeline, no checklist, no right way to do it. But if you want something to look for the moments when you feel like you can breathe again, when your body relaxes, when you laugh without monitoring the sound, when you leave a conversation energized, not drained. Those are the signs. That's the direction, a pattern, a practice, a returning. Not, look at me, I've unmasked, but this version of me feels closer to home. Here's something I haven't heard talked about a lot. Unmasking can hurt, even when it's what you want, even when it's freeing, even when it's right. The thing is, every time you let go of a mask, you're confronting the reality that you had to hide in the first place, and that can bring up grief. Grief for the years you spent trying to be easy. Grief for the friendships that only worked when you were performing. Grief for the child you were before you learned to disappear. Sometimes it even brings up shame. Why didn't I figure this out sooner? How much of my life did I spend playing a part? Was any of that real? When you unmask, you can find joy as much as you can find loss, and they exist side by side. You might mourn the comfort of being the good kid, even as you revel in saying no for the first time. You might miss the simplicity of fitting in, even as you realize you were never really included. You might feel tender and exposed, even in spaces where you are finally seen. This grief is sacred. It's the nervous system recalibrating. It's the self saying, I'm here now, I survived, and I remember. And then, eventually, joy begins to show up. At first, it's in the moments when you speak your truth and someone meets it with kindness, when you stim freely and realize no one's watching, or you don't care if they are, when you laugh without shrinking, when you catch yourself feeling comfortable in your own body and think, oh, this is what it feels like to belong to myself. When you catch yourself feeling comfortable in your own body and think, this is what it feels like to belong to myself. Unmasking is hard, but it's also beautiful, messy, brave, transformative, and it's worth it. You don't owe anyone your authentic self, but you do deserve to feel at home in your own life. If you're waiting for the moment when you're fully unmasked, that moment may never come. Because unmasking is not about reaching a finish line, it's a practice, a rhythm, a relationship. Some days you'll speak freely. Other days, you'll go quiet. Some spaces will invite your full self, others won't, and you'll choose to protect your peace. The goal of unmasking isn't to become some idealized real you who never struggles, never accommodates, never adapts. It's to build a life where your choices are rooted in self-trust. It's about noticing when you're hiding and asking gently, is this necessary right now? Or is this a habit I'm ready to shift? And what changes isn't that you never mask, it's that you start recognizing it in real time. And with that awareness comes agency. And with agency comes softness. When you're no longer bracing every second, you start to rest. You start to breathe. You start to show up more honestly. And the people who really love you, they start to find you. So if you're in the messy middle, still masking sometimes, still figuring it out, you're right on time. Keep going. Keep noticing. Keep choosing softness over shame. You don't have to rush it. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to stay curious. That curiosity is the path home. Unmasking changes your relationships, and not always in the way you hope. Sometimes the people who liked the masked version of you struggle with the real you. Maybe they say, "You're different lately." Maybe they start pulling away when you set boundaries. Maybe they miss the you who never said no, who never took up space. And that hurts deeply. Even if those connections weren't fully authentic, they were still real. They still gave you moments of belonging. They still mattered. So yes, unmasking can come with loss. But when someone only values your performance, their approval might seem like love, when in fact it is conditional. A contract that says, "I like you, as long as you stay easy, as long as you don't need too much, as long as you keep pretending." And ending that contract is painful, but also necessary. Every time you make space for your real self, you create space for people who want that version. The version who is specific, sensitive, honest, imperfect. The version who stims, who asks questions, who needs breaks, who doesn't always smile. The version who belongs without having to audition for the part. Unmasking can change the present. It can also rewrite the past. As you show up more authentically now, you might begin to hear echoes of your younger self, the one who didn't yet know how to disappear, the one who was told, "Don't be so dramatic. Why can't you be more like your brother? Can't you just try harder?" That child might have been intense, curious, sensitive, honest, and those were beautiful things. But when those traits were punished, the mask formed. And now, as you start unmasking, the child might show up again in memories, in dreams, in moments of surprising emotion. You might feel their sadness, their rage, their longing to be seen. Unmasking is an invitation to turn toward that child and say, "I see you. I believe you. I'm not going to abandon you again." You offer them what they never received: permission to exist without performance, safety without silence, love without conditions. And in that process, something profound happens. You stop unmasking just for yourself. You start unmasking for every version of you who was told they had to earn love by being less. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and share it with anyone you think might benefit from my content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.